Hi, thanks for tuning in. My name is Sheila Cooley and I'm a host of today's Common Good Vermont show. Today we're going to be talking about pathways to promising careers. And my guest today is Carolyn Weir from the McClure Foundation, advisor to the McClure Foundation, and Matt Barewicz from the Department of Labor, economist there. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Thank you.
So, Carolyn, can you tell us a little bit about the McClure Foundation and what initiated this project, Pathways to Promising Careers?
Sure. So the McClure Foundation has been a supporting organization of the Vermont Community Foundation for 20 years. Our philanthropic focus is on access to college and career education. And the impetus for this project really came about in 2008 when the McClure Foundation really narrowed and honed its philanthropic focus, chose access to college and career education, and that's in part because we learned that only 60% of Vermont high school graduates are accessing college within the first 16 months of graduating from high school. And national research is making it clear that training or education after high school is becoming increasingly necessary to earn a livable wage. So we knew that the Department of Labor are experts in this work, and they produce long-term occupational data sets every 2 years. And so saw them as a partner to help identify and promote some of the highest paying jobs that will be available in Vermont for the coming years.
So Matt, your official title is Economic and Market Information Chief.
Close.
Close?
Economic and Labor Market Information Chief, correct.
So what does that mean?
Sure. The economic piece is a little variation here in the state of Vermont, but the labor market information piece, abbreviated as LMI, is part of a national system as partnership with the U.S. Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics, so that we compile and produce data in Vermont that's consistent with federal methodology so that Vermont compare their data against California or Texas or Florida. And as part of that agreement, we participate in the federal data system that allows us to produce the unemployment rate, or what is commonly referred to as the jobs report every month. We produce information and data about occupations and wages by occupations, industries that are growing, occupations within those industries that are growing. And through a partnership with the Employment and Training Administration, we do projections for occupations, and that's what today's conversation is about. Each year we do short-term projections, which are 2-year outlooks, and then every 2 years we do 10-year long-term occupational projections, and this is our most popular data product because it informs not only public policy but also education at all levels, universities, secondary education, and the individual, career seekers, people potentially doing a transition or new to the workforce. And that's where our partnership with the McClure Foundation has been so valuable.
So this is really, like you were saying, a long-term look and where people can really make some strategic decisions. Where did this Pathways to Promising Careers come from, and what is what is the significance of the data piece for that?
So the McClure Foundation takes the wealth of information from the Department of Labor's long-term occupational data set and just applies a couple of filters, a filter around pay and a filter around job openings. So the filter around pay is identifying those jobs that on average pay more, equal to or more than the average hourly wage for Vermont workers, around $21 an hour, and then looks at a filter around job openings. So of those jobs that pay well, which are projected to have at least 150 job openings over a 10-year period. From an initial list of around 600, with those filters applied, only 67 jobs make the cut. We then categorize those jobs by the educational requirements needed to obtain them. So, for example, jobs that require only a high school diploma and maybe some training, or jobs that require only associate's degree, jobs that require a bachelor's degree, and jobs that require a master's degree and beyond. It's clear that the large majority of jobs on this list require some form of training or education after high school.
So looking at this list of 67 jobs, what was most surprising to you, Matt?
As a data person, we're overwhelmed with this information quite regularly, which made the partnership with the McClure Foundation so valuable because they were able to take clear and fresh eyes to our data product in which we released it as 600 occupations. And they said, you know what, let's make it a little bit more digestible. Let's put it in a format that is going to be easy to read and something that people will actually want to pick up as opposed to an Excel spreadsheet filled with 600 occupations. And they produced this wonderful brochure which gives that information to young people about where opportunities are going to be. And not just necessarily young people, but people doing career changes or looking for opportunities for new professional development. So I guess some of the stuff is, I think, surprising to individuals is that the mix and the range of occupations which come up because certain types of occupations can be found in all different types of industries, and not everyone realizes the diversity that the Vermont economy has. We often get pigeonholed as we're tourism and hospitality, but then they're like, oh yeah, well we do have private education, higher post-secondary education, and we do have good health care, and then we also have a wealth of professional development and business services. And I think what surprises people the most is that we, on average, according to national data, when compared per capita on the job basis, Vermont has more manufacturing employment than the nation overall. So we actually have a higher concentration of manufacturing employment here in the state of Vermont than the nation does on a percentage basis. And so when you add that all together with construction, you're starting to get a real rich landscape of opportunities for people of all different educational backgrounds, opportunities for them to come in and pursue their economic goals through different forms of employment.
I think that was striking, the number of jobs that only need a high school or associate's degree that are making $21 plus. Mm-hmm. That was very interesting and probably unexpected for when I was looking at these. And for McClure Foundation, you guys have been doing this over time, and this has been a focus for you. Is this the first time you've put out this brochure?
It is the first time we've put out this brochure. In the past 2 months, over 15,000 of them have been distributed to a couple dozen high schools, some middle schools, a number of colleges, state legislators, counseling organizations like VSAC, the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. And we're thrilled because we see value in this information at the individual level. It can help both current students and graduates make decisions about their own college and career choices, but it can also help institutions like career and technical education centers and colleges make decisions about what courses they're offering, what majors they make available to their students. And we know that this is a valuable tool, but it's only one tool, right? Any individual who uses this list will bring their own hopes and passions and dreams for the future to bear on any decision they make about college and career. So this is only one tool and hopefully a larger toolkit. And as Matt can explain, this data is based on, or these jobs are based on historical data, so it doesn't include jobs that we can't predict, that don't exist yet. So it's not an exhaustive list, but we do feel like there's valuable information here that can help direct some choices about college and career.
I did notice that there was, at all levels of education, a lot of positions open in the healthcare field. Do you see that growth as a positive or a negative thing, since some people think healthcare is kind of taking over everything, including our budgets and our, and our wallets?
I think what I'd say to that is the jobs here represent openings, and it's not necessarily due to growth. And the one thing we know about Vermont, and this is a U.S. phenomenon as well, is that the average American, average Vermonter is aging. The baby boomers created a seismic shift in our demographics, such that now we have opportunities that are occurring not because of growth, but because of replacements. And the three industries that come up on a demographic scale as being above average in terms of the average age of the individuals in the jobs is healthcare, construction, and manufacturing. And those are three different industries that provide different occupations and opportunities for individuals with strong growth potential for wages. So some of these are not because of growth, but because of replacements. And we know, for example, nurses are very much in demand, and we know that there's a number of nurses out there that continue to work well past like retirement age, are looking to transition to either limited hours or transition out completely. So these represent openings, and I think it was a wise move to focus on openings because if I'm someone looking for a job, I'm less concerned about whether the job is new to me or new to the economy. So I'm looking for just, whether I took, Charlie's seat or it's a new seat to the company, I'm just looking for that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So that trends of manufacturing, construction, and healthcare, is that similar to what's happening on a national or regional level?
Yeah, I think there's certain pockets that deviate away from that, but that is part of a national storyline that's going right now, which is that the baby boomers have come into retirement. They hit retirement at a really unique time in economic history as it relates to the Great Recession, which started in December 2007. So all of a sudden you're planning your retirement and you walk up against this major economic downturn. And you're like, whoa, my plans to retire in a year, I'm going to put those on hold as the value of my home or the value of my stock portfolio or the uncertainty about my economic future has increased. So, people put off retiring, and now what we're seeing is there's pent-up demand for retirement, and we're seeing that in our labor force numbers, that the labor force numbers for the state of Vermont are declining. Our labor force participation rate is still relatively high because we have a well-educated population that is well-engaged with the workforce, but it is declining because of that demographic shift. And so young people today have tremendous opportunity as it relates to going into these opportunities that might not have been available 10 years ago because there is going to be this transitioning out of mature workers.
So this information is useful for individuals, students, folks looking at the career possibilities in Vermont. But like you said, this is also valuable to policymakers. Mm-hmm. And what do you see, how do you see this impacting or informing post-secondary educators in Vermont? And what do you think that means for the opportunities that exist for Vermonters?
That's a great question. The brochures have already been used in testimony with the House and Senate Education Committees, in particular in considering increasing the state investment in the public higher ed system. I mentioned that only 60% of Vermont high school graduates, at least between 2009 and 2011, enrolled in college within 16 months of graduation, and that's worse than the national average. Access and success at college is a complex issue, so it's informed by a number of factors, but cost is clearly one of them. Cost is an issue nationally, but specific to Vermont. By almost any measure, the state is funding the public higher education system, and that includes the community college system, it includes the Vermont Technical College, Linden State, Castleton State, Johnson State, includes the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. The state is funding that system at half of what it did in 1980. And so the burden of that kind of consistent underfunding, at least in part, is being shifted to students and their families in the form of higher tuition. So cost is clearly a big factor for accessing college. There are a number of others as well. College readiness and college aspiration are two other factors. There are some students graduating from high school in Vermont now without the skills ready to succeed in college. And there are a number of students who are not aspiring to college. Data from the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation shows that male high school students who would be the first in their family to attend college have the lowest college aspiration rate of any cohort in Vermont, and right now are accessing college at a rate of 42% within the first 6 months of graduating.
That is
16 months.
Yeah, that seems extraordinarily low. What does that mean for secondary education, for the Vermont high schools, in preparing students, and particularly young men, to go on to further education, whatever that may be?
There's a lot of really good work happening at Vermont high schools right now to prepare students for the workforce, to prepare students for post-secondary education, and to create bridges between high school and college. There's plenty of opportunity to do more of that work and to invest in more of that work. The McClure Foundation since 2008 has invested $2.5 million in promising programs around the state to do just that, to offer work-based learning opportunities, internship programs, college and career awareness and exposure opportunities, specifically at the high school level. I think the Introduction to College Studies program at the Community College of Vermont is a great example. 60% of the students accessing that course identify as first in family to pursue college, and the graduates of that program enroll in college at a rate of 71%. So clearly, exposure to college and support in the application process is very much changing the college-going identities of those students, and the McClure Foundation has supported that particular program since 2010 with about $350,000.
So the manufacturing is an interesting piece because I think healthcare people can understand nurses, and those are kind of jobs to understand. And it's surprising to hear that Vermont has a high proportion of manufacturing jobs because it's not something we think of. We don't have a lot of big factories. We're not making widgets, right? But what do those manufacturing jobs look like? And what skills or education do they typically need to access those?
Yeah, those are good questions, and they're questions that I think that a lot of people don't think of because they have in their mind what manufacturing looks like. When you mention widgets, we don't make widgets, but when I'm in talking with high school students or college students or just the general population, I ask them, well, what does Vermont make? And it doesn't take long for them to think of a bunch of things that Vermont makes and makes very well. It might not be cars. But we do make cheese and beer and chocolate and teddy bears and snowboards. And so it is just what in economic terms is considered boutique manufacturing. We don't have the large production facility, but we do have a lot of production facilities that just might not have the scale people think of. And these jobs range. Some of them are research and design, some of them are engineering, some of them are engineering technicians, which is a big thing that Vermont Technical College is really trying to promote because these are careers that may require a 2-year degree. So when Carolyn and I are up here talking about post-secondary education, we're not talking just about BAs. We could be talking about AAs or apprenticeships or certificate programs, something that's going to get an individual upskilled in an area of demand. So manufacturing is very clean nowadays. It's not the old big, rusty mills that would be cranking out widgets, but very clean, very safe, engaging workplaces because technology has changed the way things are made. And so a lot of people think that manufacturing is, there's no more manufacturing. The United States doesn't make anything anymore. And that's just not true. We just make it differently. It's no longer the employment base it used to be. It's no longer 10,000 people on the forward line, but it's now a much smaller, leaner production because they use technology different. So these occupations, they require technical expertise in either computers or math and the ability to solve problems and be able to measure and test the products that are coming out because the specifications are so precise. So there's tremendous opportunity for individuals, Vermont Technical College, as well as the career technical education facilities. These are the what used to be known as vocational schools, now called career and technical education. This is either in partnership with regular high school or secondary education or on a path on its own. But these are programs of study that are designed specifically with employment in mind, a way for an individual who might not be engaging in a regular academic classroom setting to say, okay, we've got a ton of opportunities for you to apply your learning and actually be ready to work when you leave here, or partnership with an apprenticeship such that you are getting paid to learn and graduating with little to no debt and transitioning directly into employment.
So there's a lot of discussion right now around education funding, and for me this conversation's bringing up a lot of there's going to be cuts, and then there's all this really exciting stuff that's happening in probably a more expensive way for these students to kind of engage in career pathways. Where do you see technical education kind of blending with these kind of tough fiscal times that we're facing right now?
That's a great question. I'd say that this work has more to do with legislation passed in 2013 than some of the bills that are on the docket for the legislature this session. So in 2013, the legislature passed the Flexible Pathways Bill, which offers a number of career and college exposure and readiness opportunities for all Vermont students. So through that legislation, implementation is happening now. Students have access to dual enrollment opportunities in which they can access 1 or 2 college classes while they're in high school, either within the walls of their high school or actually on a college campus. They can access early college, in which they are enrolling in their first year of college during their senior year of high school, and a number of other programs. Students have the opportunity to personalize their learning such that the K-12 system that we think of now can be reconceptualized as a pre-K to 16 spectrum, in which college or some form of post-secondary education can be seen as a very logical and natural and seamless next step after high school graduation.
So where do people, I mean, this is a great brochure that you guys have produced. It's easy to understand, it's accessible, it's not a big spreadsheet. No offense, I'm sure there's people that love those.
Yes.
Where can people get these, and how can they learn more about the career, the 67 positions that are going to be seeing growth in Vermont?
Great, that's maybe the most important question. We still have thousands of these brochures available. So I'm telling folks, if you are a school board member or an educator or a mentor or work with the Girl Scouts, please request brochures. We can send them to you for free, and they're available on our website by request at www.mcclurevt.org/pathways. Happy to send them out all over the state.
Fantastic. And they don't cost any money, they're free.
Correct.
Oh, fantastic. That's really wonderful. Do you have any thoughts about some of the other positions maybe we haven't talked about? We've talked about manufacturing and healthcare, briefly mentioned some of the education growth that we're seeing here, but is there anything else that you want to, that was striking to you in some of these, maybe some of the other arenas that we haven't talked about?
Sure. One thing I would mention is that construction or the trades is really projected to grow, and this is growth in the form of recapture from where we once were. The recession hit the construction industry particularly hard, and it was not until 2014, 7 years after the recession began, that we started seeing recovery in construction. So as part of these long-term projections, we believe there's a lot of pent-up demand for the trades, whether it relates to infrastructure or residential or commercial building. I think you'll see a lot of construction-related activities in there, and some of them require either a high school degree or some sort of post-secondary training, like an apprenticeship. And so these are really accessible careers for people who have an interest or those type of talents that they can put to work and earn a good living rate out of high school.
Is this a good indicator that if construction is coming, meaning that there's going to be maybe improvements for other things, other growth in Vermont?
Yeah, and again, this is part of a national trend because Vermont is just a small fish in a big economic pond that is the United States economy. And I think there's poised to be some significant rebound as it relates to construction. And some of it, again, is just related to infrastructure, just upkeep. But other parts, it might be related to new development or residential expansion, or commercial expansion. So there are a lot of opportunities for individuals out there. And these brochures have been made available to the 12 career resource centers, which are part of the Vermont Department of Labor's offices, which are spread all throughout the state of Vermont. There's 12 of them, normally accessible to everyone within a 15-20 minute drive and on bus routes and public transportation. So if you have questions about career awareness or just need help with a resume or need to go through a mock interview, the Vermont Department of Labor offers free services as it relates to career placement, career awareness, and assistance in getting a new job.
And I think we have your website up there so folks can find more about those career centers and where they are.
Great.
Up on the screen. Well, thank you, Carolyn and Matt, for coming on and telling us about this Pathways to Promising Careers. Any last thoughts you'd like to leave us with about this project, or any hopes you have for folks using the information?
I guess I would leave off with a story I I heard last week, I got a call from a woman who just took a job as a community development manager in a small town in central Vermont. She's in her mid-50s and she just decided to have a career switch. She took a significant pay cut in order to take that job because she finds it personally fulfilling and meaningful. And she called to say, I saw this resource on the news, I think you're doing great work, and I would caution you that there's more to the story, right? We are all bringing our own interests and passions and hopes for ourselves and for our communities into any decision we make about career, about investment in post-secondary education, and she's absolutely right. So again, this is a very valuable tool, and I think a resource that can help a number of folks at the individual level and can help a number of organizations at the organizational level, and it's just one tool.
An interesting intersection of we get paid in different ways,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
I love that. And Matt, any last thoughts about?
No, I think that sums it up well in terms of these are guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
The jobs of the future, we don't know yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so if individuals look at these, I encourage people not to look at them as a static occupational title, but think of them as a basket of skills. Because the more skills individuals have, the more you can do for yourself, the better off you'll be and the more opportunities available in the future. So the message being keep learning.
Thank you so much, both Matt and Carolyn, for coming on and contextualizing this information, because I think it is definitely a product of where we've been and where we're going. So very informative. Thank you all for tuning in to the Common Good Vermont show on Pathways to a Promising Career with Carolyn Weir and Matt Barewicz. We're talking about the McClure Foundation's recent brochure here, which you can get online, mcclurevt.org/pathways. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Sheila.